It's interesting because we had a philosopher on the Animal Rights Show, and I particularly wanted to ask him whether Reagan's statement in the kind of famous opening speech, that one from 1988, he says that utilitarianism is a morally bankrupt philosophy, and a lot of people didn't realize that he was actually criticizing the main moral philosophy of our movement, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask this philosopher, would that be seen as a dated critique of utilitarianism now? Because now you've got different versions of utilitarianism, preference utilitarian, acts utilitarian, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And Peter Singer is supposed to have moved through that spectrum. And now you've got this thing called threshold deontology, which seems to be almost maybe a hybrid between utilitarianism and deontology. And I don't know much about that, because I've always just followed Reagan's thing, which was kind of like pure deontology, I suppose.
What is that? Can you explain that? Sorry, for myself. What can you explain that word? What does deontology mean?
Well, it's basically kind of like this idea that you strictly follow moral rules.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, but it's not really true. In fact, even Francione said that real life forces us to be utilitarian, even when we don't want to be. But that doesn't mean that your philosophy needs to be.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, this is where, and I had a couple of guests on recently, just now, who were trying to use the sort of the not the futility argument, the hypocrisy argument, and it's just like we all live in this world, and we can only do certain things, but we do try our hardest, and we're all learning all the time.
Yeah, but there's some rules that we won't break.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's others that society forces you to break. Like, for example, I mean, let's face it, things like spay and neuter of our fellow animals. On the face of it, that's a rights violation.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of these that we would call a necessary evil, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and being what is it? Be kind to be good. Oh, that kind of thing. And you're kind of forced into making these choices for beings who are not in the position to do it. It's like a parental thing.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, this is why humans tend to infantilize our fellow animals and regard them as children all the time. Oh, come to mummy and all that, even though the dog is 16 years old and this kind of stuff. And that's a problem, really. We don't allow them to be adults quite often.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I think, and it's understandable, we don't understand. I mean, the average person doesn't understand our fellow animals' behavioural characteristics, depending on their species as well. So, like you say, a dog there, most people only understand that as a smaller animal who appears to enjoy petting, and so that's the thing that's the connection they seem to make.
That's how we use pets, isn't it? I mean,
that's right, absolutely.
Pets are used as much as chickens are used as food. Pets are used as pets. I mean, it's one way that we use our fellow animals.
That's right. I mean, we talk about rescuing companion animals, which is the right thing to do, because there are many, many domestic animals out there, domesticated animals who would be unalived if they weren't rescued or adopted. So that's the right thing to do. But if you go down to that purity level, if you absolutely don't need to have a companion animal in your home, then you shouldn't, should you? In the pure, because it's exploitation.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that the language has changed. I mean, obviously, in the 80s, we used to just say pet. And then around about the mid-80s, I think, this concept of companion animal was developed in order to... It was kind of having a bit of a go at the property status of our fellow animals. And then the idea of animal companion came in to reverse it, because companion animal seems to give them a job. It's like laboratory animal. It's their job. Whereas animal in laboratory, that's something we've imposed on them.
Yeah. I mean, prefer. I mean, I prefer to name them as their species, if you like, to sort of say, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, language is difficult, but
yeah,
language is so important. And also, human beings, in a weird way, are not very good at it,
no,
even though it's one of our main parts. But, from a kind of point of view of ethnomethodology, we are such skilled social animals that even though we communicate with each other poorly, we tend to fill the gaps. Like those tests that people do, and you can hear a little bit of music, and you know what that is because you fill the gaps.
yeah,
You
yeah,
you
yeah,
can you can even take words out of sentences
yeah.
and
Oh,
make
absolutely.
sense of them.
You can take words out of sentences, and then you can take letters out of words.
That's it. Yeah,
I think you take vowels out of words, and you can
yeah,
still
that's right.
understand the
If you just
sentence.
use consonants, you should still read it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
right.
you can mix up the words. And it's amazing how there's many
Yeah,
tests
and you
like
can
that.
get them in the wrong order, and they'll still
Yeah.
work.
Well, we know visually as well, don't we? I think hearing as well, but certainly visually. I think I'm going to get the percentage wrong, but we make up at least 80% of what we think we see because we can't take that much in every second. So this is why evidential evidence is
Yeah,
really
human eyesight is not very good, is it?
well. It's good in terms of what it does do, but the brain
Yeah.
has to make up. As I say, I think 80% of it, it's a bit like AI. Think of it like, when you rub something out on Photoshop or something AI and it miraculously knows what was in the background of something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yes,
That's the human brain.
yeah.
That's what we do. We imagine
Doing kind of all the work.
what's
I used to
behind
be
the
a
tree.
projectionist, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a tree in front of me here, and my brain will imagine what's behind it because it works out. Well, there's a bit of another tree there. There's some clouds there. The sunlight is doing this. I've seen a bird doing that, and there you go. And this has been proven in psychology tests with people giving eyewitness evidence of car crashes, for instance. And we're talking about the color of someone's t-shirt or exactly what happened, and everyone's different. They come out with actually the people looking at different because of either their programming or whatever it is. But people just come up with different stuff.
Yeah, well, I know that I'd be a terrible eyewitness because I don't remember anything.
I don't I don't really pay much attention.
No,
I
I
thought
don't. I don't even look at other people usually. I'm
no,
just, yeah, almost like out of focus for me, kind of thing. So,
I thought about this the other day. I was driving along and I saw somebody, and they were acting a little bit suspiciously out in the countryside. They'd got a camera and they were taking a photo of a caravan reseller or something like that. I don't know. But I kid you not, I thought, oh, I just remember what they were wearing. Half a mile later, I thought, what were they? I have no idea.
yeah, absolutely gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I address this question here from
Yes, do.
Persona?
What is it?
You should have spliced in some vegan messaging when you were a projection. They used to do that because there used to be intermissions at cinemas, right? Often in the middle of a film, one of those classic Doctor
Yeah.
Zhivago and that, they would have an intermission in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And because even Monty Python took the piss out of that idea. But anyway,
Yeah.
so what they would do is like about 7 minutes before the intermission, you would splice in one frame of an ice cream,
Right.
right? And that would increase the sales because it's like a subliminal message. It's a little bit like they banned in supermarkets. People, they had Muzak in supermarkets,
Yeah.
and you get this kind of, buy cornflakes, that kind of thing. And
Is it like playing Black Sabbath backwards or something? Is it?
something like that. But
Yeah.
I actually did this when McDonald's started doing the Happy Meals, right? And they used to include a free toy,
Yeah.
which wasn't free, right? And it said that on the adverts, but really low, So when they would do, say, like they would sponsor the new 101 Dalmatians, for example, and they would go get your free model of it, and then they would put very small, includes extra costs for the toy kind of thing, which obviously only the parents saw.
Yeah.
The kids were looking at the screen.
Yeah.
So I used to have a projector set up in the projection box, apart from the film projector.
Hmm.
And so when that came up, I used to put a vegan message on it, like you're going to be paying for this kind of thing and all that. I mean, I could have been fired for it, but I never was, so that was pretty good.
That's great. I mean, I mean, we go back to language, don't we? Language is incredibly important. And you probably don't know this. I used to be a registered hypnotherapist, Roger. And so I've got lots and lots of books, some of them called word weaving and so on. And part of the art of hypnotherapy was to put in either words into your script or say words in an unexpected way, or even have pauses in ways that made the patient's brain stop and then start again in their comprehension.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating when you look at really good orators, how they, through the history, how they naturally do that. And I've exaggerated that one. So how they
it's called rhythm, isn't
do
it?
that. Yeah. And you can break rhythm, and you can break a patient's rhythm, for instance, which means their brain is waiting for something that never arrives. And then the next thing, it's hypervigilant at that point. The next thing that's said goes in.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I've never liked poetry on the page, but I love poetry when it's performed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's why, well, with poetry and actually books, I quite like reading them out loud, because you can add all of that in. You can add character and intonation and
Yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it? Yeah.
well, I learned that decades and decades ago, when someone said it's a good revision aid, was to read out, if you're revising for an exam, to read it out rather than just read it, because you're using another sense. You're using your ears.
And I think proofreaders, one technique is to read the lines backwards.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just when you're checking on whether the words are spelt right.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Well, yeah, you've seen these on Facebook, haven't you, where people put "had" twice or something, and they say you'll never get this. You'll never get what's wrong.
I was always terrible with typos when I was writing my PhD, because we were doing it on computers in those days. But we used to have to print them out, because I could never see a typo on the screen. And loads and loads and loads of people have told me that they never do on the screen. But once you print it out, you see it straight away.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
There's so much more research into this, and also levels of dyslexia, which this technically is in some ways, that you're just not seeing what's in front of you.
Well, I see that I've taken you down from 70 to 38, so maybe it's time for me to go.
Not you. This is really not you, Roger. This is what happens. It happens. I get a burst up to 70, and we'll go down to about 18 by the time I've had enough.
See, people want to see people arguing, don't they?
Yeah, they do. But I mean, you've seen my stuff. I argue.
Disappointing, I think.
I don't shout. I try and educate. I try and get them to agree that they've got massive holes in what they think they believe, and that it's not really consistent. That you're telling me this, but it doesn't make sense, and surely you must agree with that. So yeah.
Indeed.
But,
right. Anyway, I will leave you and love you and all that.
Thank you, Roger.
We usually say it the other way around, don't we? We love you and leave you. That's right. And
it's probably better. We talk about the impact of words. I'm now, my heart's going twice as fast as it was now, Roger.
Okay. Well, good luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you, my friend.
You take care.
Yeah, and you. See you soon.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Thanks, Roger. Bye. Oh, that was lovely. That was lovely. Always good to talk to Roger.